Okay, so that's the big picture, things we wanted to cover as far as the trends go. And I think we'll open up to questions if there's anything specific.
Is your administration interested in publishing data weekly, historical data by precinct?
We publish the data quarterly, and that allows us to show trends. We have police officers attending community meetings monthly, and they provide monthly information at those community meetings. And we think that that gives a good picture of where the city is. If you provide it daily, it might not give you an adequate picture of what's happening from a trend standpoint. And the point of this data is to show a big picture on what's happening in your neighborhood, and we think doing it quarterly provides that.
And your administration's been behind on reporting to state agencies and federal agencies the data. Is there any particular reason why, and improving that?
We were behind on reporting the NIBRS as we switched from CompStat to NIBRS. I just mentioned we had to increase our personnel from 2 to 7 to keep up with the reporting requirements. NIBRS is a lot more granular, and it's a lot, it's more accurate in some ways and can be misinterpreted in other ways, but it requires a lot more information to be entered. It requires much more investigation. And unlike the CompStat data, which was based on initial reports, it's based on the end investigation. So a crime reported in January might not be able to be entered completely until March if there's a follow-up investigation by detectives or something like that, and we become aware of perpetrator information, et cetera. So during the switch, we fell behind a little. We have since caught up. We're now completely up to date. And in January, we completely switched to the NIBRS system and began using it moving forward, as I said.
On that topic, Director, so you probably saw Councilman Baggiano this week. Despite using the new system, he still wants the release of a CompStat UCR numbers in 2024. I know you touched on it a little, but directly, any particular reason why that isn't happening or what happened?
Yeah, we release, as I said, we release the same numbers we release to the federal government. If I release 2 different types of numbers, you won't be able to compare them. For instance, NIBRS, I said, is much more accurate. So in the old, I'll give you an example. In the old CompStat system, if somebody committed a home invasion, went into your home and robbed you, that would be a robbery. Because the old CompStat system, the federal government wanted the highest possible crime counted. So it would count as a robbery. Under NIBRS, and I applaud the federal government and the FBI for doing this, we're now getting more granular. Under NIBRS, that will now be counted as a robbery and a burglary because somebody entered your home, and an assault because somebody assaulted you. So we'll get a better picture of what actually happened, but it's 3 crimes. Let's say you, God forbid, your wife and your child. Now there could be 3 assaults, could be 5 crimes, what used to be counted as 1 crime. So we're getting better at counting the information. They're demanding a lot more, but you can't do an apples to apples comparison anymore based on their systems. The only other thing I'll say about the councilman criticizing that we don't give it every month, we've accomplished a lot here in Jersey City. If you had told me in 2013, when we had multiple shootings in a day and 20 to 25 homicides and we were fighting all that the people running for office in 2024 would be criticizing me because I'm giving out the numbers every 3 months instead of every month, I would have settled for that.
Very good. Director, I wanted to ask, you mentioned bail reform for being an obstacle for some of those, I don't want to say lower crime, but like lower on the chart.
Lower on the chart, that's a great.
So I guess my question is bail reform, if you're saying that's one of the reasons why those lower on the chart crimes went higher, why wouldn't that apply to homicides? If homicides are a much lower level now than they were, 10 years ago, why do you think, bail reform, I guess from your perspective, affects those lower the chart crimes differently than homicides?
I can address that by talking about how we addressed each type of crime. So when we took over under Mayor Phillips' administration, we did very deep dive into why we have consistent homicide levels of 20 to 25, at one point reaching 41 in a year. So we looked into why is this so persistent? Why can't we do anything? And the problem was in the prosecution. We were finding a lot of times who did it, but we weren't being able to successfully prosecute them. So we have invested all our efforts over the last 10 years into technology, into getting a better picture of who's committing crimes, into intelligence, to the point where, into working with the prosecutor and the U.S. attorney, making sure we're providing them what they need to prosecute these perpetrators successfully. And we're getting the results because Homicide perpetrators, if they are prosecuted successfully, they're removed from the streets for a long time, and they're not able to continue doing it. Where in the past, we had people doing multiple homicides and were not able to be removed. On the, as we called it, lower level, those crimes are not treated with the same seriousness, nor should they be, because they're not as serious. Though they're serious to you if you're the crime victim. That's why I have trouble like discussing it like this. But they're not treated with the same seriousness. So if we we catch someone live doing something on video, and we bring it down to the prosecutor's office, by bail reform rules, they have to be released. And their court case might be in 8 months. The problem for us, and this is an unintended consequence of bail reform, nobody saw this coming, and again, I'm a proponent of bail reform. Nobody should be in jail because they can't afford to pay bail. That's an absolute. So I believe in bail reform. I think we have to fix this without touching the bail reform thing. But that person is now out, and unfortunately, those lower level criminals commit multiple crimes. Some of them 20 to 30 a day. We collared one person, we arrested one person for breaking into a car. He had 24 different people's credit cards on him from multiple jurisdictions all over Hudson County. So since they can't be kept in jail, even to wait for their court hearing, an unintended consequence of that is that they're out in the street a lot more, and when they're out in the street, they're committing crimes. So we're seeing those lower level crimes tick up. The answer, the solution I would suggest, and we talk to people at the state level and everyone agrees, the courts in New Jersey need a lot more resources. If we're going to ask them to deal with this, they need more judges, they need more support personnel so that we can hold these people accountable quicker. And I don't think there's a shortcut to that. I think that has to be done.
On that topic, so obviously Mayor Fulop running for governor, I know you rolled out your criminal justice plan several months ago, but we're hearing this a lot in Jersey City and even in neighboring Hoboken, all the way down to Camden and Trenton. People, as the director said, someone gets arrested on Monday, they get out to get arrested again on Tuesday. So I mean, if you're elected to this state office, what would you do with bail reform to try to change this?
I mean, we've spoken about it. I don't want to get too into the politics here, but look, I'm a supporter of bail reform. Nobody should be incarcerated because they can't pay to be released. I think the state needs to devote more resources as it relates to the judicial process. I think what Jim said as well. And I think that we need to expedite the repeat offenders through the system a little bit more efficiently and quickly. We need to have a list that targets those people that are quickly moving through the court process so that they could be adjudicated rapidly, the ones that are repeat offenders again and again and again. And I don't think New Jersey does a good job of identifying those people. You get back in the queue, and that takes time, unfortunately, and not everybody should be treated the same, in the sense that if you are doing 20 to 25 crimes a day, you should probably be moving through the judicial process quicker, so that way you don't get released so quickly to do it again.
I know you're going to have a ceremony later today.
Yeah.
Can you reflect on the, 5 years ago, the Kosher Deli, the shooting? It was a terrible day for Jersey City. Can you reflect on that?
Yeah.
And how far you've come, and is anti-Semitism still a huge issue in our country and the state?
I mean, we've seen certainly an uptick in anti-Semitism here in Jersey City. We see graffiti, swastikas, people putting stickers and saying slurs, having rallies that are clearly anti-Semitic in unapproved locations. We do our best from the police department and DPW to clean that up, to disband those gatherings that are inappropriate without creating more attention to it, in order to allow them to flock together and have more of those sort of things. Look, when you look back at December of 2019, it could have been a much worse situation by far. Had they had the opportunity to get into that yeshiva that day, you would have had a situation where 50 or 60 young children would have been killed. I think the Jersey Police Department learned a lot that day. I think the city learned a lot. We've done a lot of healing over the time with different communities having more dialogue. We could always continue to do that. The Jewish community here continues to grow, which is a good thing, I think, from the standpoint of they remain committed and view Jersey City as a good place, and that is an isolated incident. But, as you read about these mass shootings across the country, you never think it could really happen in your own home. And I think that was a wake-up call for all of us here that, the city that we're building together here is very fragile, and those sort of things can happen here. So it's important to remember it. We have the ceremony later today, and we're going to continue to do that.
Mayor, on the homicide rate, you mentioned kind of broad efforts that you think attributed to the decrease, but are there any specific strategies within the department or in collaboration with other departments that you think really is the reason for the drop?
And I'll do it after.
Yeah, I think driving the rate down, the main contributors from our side under Director Moody and Chief Kearns, one has been working more closely with the prosecutorial agencies. We're only a small part of the criminal justice system, and this ties into what we talked about before, about the lower level crimes. We really need to work in concert. So sitting down many years ago and having hard conversations about why are we arresting people, why are they being released, why are they being prosecuted for lesser crimes, are we falling down and are presenting to you enough evidence to hold them accountable for the actions they actually did? What do you need to prosecute them with both the state and the federal prosecutorial agencies has been a main driver. With that, the mayor and the council's approval of huge resources toward the CCTV system and the usage of cameras out there, because the mayor alluded to it before. Many of these crimes were happening in neighborhoods that were poorly served by the police in history. There was a mistrust of the police. Getting witnesses to work with you on these was very difficult for a lot of reasons. And instead of complaining about it, we determined to do something about it. So we built these systems so that we were not dependent on witnesses anymore. We had independent camera views that we could bring to the prosecutorial agencies. And that helped them both in developing a case and in getting guilty pleas and winning a trial on it. Finally, the intelligence-driven, again, under the police department, I can't say enough, we streamlined all of our people that are involved in fighting gun violence. So under our investigations bureau, from the people on the street that are trying to see if someone is catching guns, you promote to working the CCTV systems and observing someone who might be carrying a gun and working with them. You promote to investigating shootings and eventually homicides. And it's one straight line, and eventually you can even be promoted into a federal task force where you work with the ATF or with the FBI on violent crimes. So by streamlining that and keeping our best police officers where they can do the best working against this crime, we didn't lose any historical memory anymore. So we don't transfer someone out of those units when they've proven to be good at it. We utilize them within it. So our ceasefire unit, which directly, that's another creation under the mayor, we created a ceasefire unit that investigates every shooting and homicide. Before that, there were 4 detective groups. And if you committed a shooting, the local detective would handle it. Well, that local detective might not know that there was a previous shooting in a different district the other day, and that this is a tit-for-tat situation. By making a ceasefire unit that investigates all shootings, we were able to connect all those dots and present a better picture again to our prosecutorial agencies. So it's been a lot of work. It's been a lot of work going through some of the anti-police feeling, being able to keep our people out on the street, doing a lot of this hard work of trying to remove firearms from the street and trying to catch violent people that are willing to use deadly force against other people. We're very satisfied with the results. And as the mayor said, every day we say it's fragile, and every day we're happy with single digits, but that's 6 victims too many. And we won't be satisfied until we get it to 0.
Do you think you can sustain a single-digit rate next year?
Ask me next year. We have a lot of resources. We're facing recruiting problems. I think we have the talent available. I think high numbers feed on themselves. We're hoping low numbers will also feed on themselves. A lot of violence is retaliatory, so the less you have, the less there's a reason for retaliation. I'm cautious. I'm never optimistic. The people who work for me will tell you I'm an eternal pessimist. I'm never optimistic about anything. But I believe there's reason to believe we might be able to maintain this trend. And I think, could you put up the homicide one, Tim? Did I lose you? Okay, mind if I should? If you look at the trend, because I don't look at any one year. I've been doing this for a long time. I never look at one year. I always look at the trend. Everybody can hear me, I'm sure. So if you look at our trend, from the time we started in the police department to be a little more comfortable that we were getting our trend where it should be around 2019. 2019, if you'll remember, was the December 10th active shooter attack. So that was 4 victims in one day. So we had hit December with only 9. So we were almost a single digit then too, and then we had 4 victims in one day, God rest them, and it drove us to 13. And then in 2020, we were 17. Okay, we're still at that trend. We've went from the 20s to the teens. And when we have a multiple trend like that, we start to get a little more comfortable. Then came the COVID year where crime jumped all across the United States. But we got it back very quickly. New York is still fighting, and I'm not knocking New York. They put a lot of resources, great police department. I worked there for 25 years. They're wonderful. But New York is still struggling to get back to here, to their 2019 numbers. They're down for the last couple of years, but they haven't gotten back yet. We're back and continuing our downward decline, thanks to the work of the police department and under Director Moody's thing. So, having said that, I like this trend. When I get 3 years, it's better than getting 1 year. I see it going in the right direction, and I'm cautiously optimistic for a pessimist that we can keep it going that way.
Okay, thank you all for coming out today. If any additional questions, reach out to Kim. Thanks.
Do you think we're going to need shots of this?
I took some pictures, but yeah, can you put it back on?
Really?
Even better.
Sorry, do you guys want it? I was gonna ask. Yeah, I'd like to do it just so I have it.
I can't see why. How are you? Good to see you as well. How's it going?
So,